Let's continue our conversation on select rationalists. We have Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a brilliant mathematician and diplomat, and also struggled with Descartes' dualism and the requirement for mind-body interaction. He proposed a monadology. This was a system in which individual units of existence, these monads, moved in parallel in a pre-established harmony without interacting. Though monads do not interact with each other, they may combine in experience. So, for Leibniz, the mind is an active force in manipulating sensory input. He argued for a uniformitarianism, the theory that all geological phenomena may explain as a result of existing forces having operated uniformly from the origin of the earth to the present time. So basically, he was claiming that change is gradual and takes place over long periods of time. We'll see this idea offered up a little bit more when we talk about Darwinism and evolution, which is also influenced by the idea of how the earth evolves and changes over time. We have Christian von Wolff. Extended the work of Leibniz. Wolff was one of the first to use psychology in a publication. And then, of course, we have Immanuel Kant. He sought a middle ground between empiricism and rationalism. Kant distinguished between analytical a priori statements that are tautologies and synthetic a priori statements that contain new information about the world. He believed that knowledge begins with sensory experience, but the mind uses those innate categories of understanding to make our experiences intelligible, to make sense of it all. Kant proposes a basic social psychology as well. He argued that humans are caught in a tension between government from the outside and self government. So, self government plays a role in our ability to act in moral manner with each other. Johann Friedrich Herbart took psychological approach to educational problems. He attempted to quantify phenomena in psychology. He studied apperception. Mental operations are more complex than sense perception. He claimed the goal of education was to build an apperceptive mass. Education for Herbert was also a moral education. He was a founding figure of modern psychology and educational theory. And then we have Thomas Reid, advocated a common sense philosophy. He rejected any philosophical positions that were counterintuitive or did violence to human experience of the world. He was frustrated with the counterintuitive claims of Berkeley and Hume. Reid argued for what he's called first principles, propositions that could not be doubted without violating common sense. For example, one first principle requires the belief in an external world. So, the rationalists. The rationalists and the empiricists disagreed in several ways, but they both acknowledged the importance of enfranchising curiosity and letting inquiry run its course. Despite biblical and authoritative injunctions against curiosity, Bacon, Descartes, and others found theological and natural supports for allowing human curiosity to run unchecked. Psychophysics. The study of the relation between the body and the mind in matters of sensation and perception. Fechner is the founder of this branch of psychology. In 1860, the date of the publication of the Elements of Psychophysics is sometimes suggested as the birth date of psychology as a science. The rise of experimental psychology happening around this time, we have Ernst Weber investigated the sense of touch and mapped out the sensitivity of touch for the entire body using the 2-point threshold. Sensitivity ranged from the most sensitive on the tongue to the least sensitive on the back. Work in kinesthesia led to the determination of the just noticeable difference, the least amount of change necessary to notice a difference between a particular dimension between two stimuli. Determined that Weber's law, The finding that the amount of change necessary to notice a difference, J and D, is a constant fraction relating to the stimuli. This was the first quantitative law in psychology. Ernst Weber's function. S, sensation, sensory organ, that is body, and P, perception, mind. The mind and the body are different and separate and follow different laws. The mind and the body are connected by a mathematical relationship. Ergo, the mind can be studied scientifically. Psychology can be a science. Gustav Fechner, son of a Lutheran pastor, studied medicine. Then his interest turned to physics. 1834, he was appointed professor at Leipzig University, becoming interested in studying sensation. He's also known for his study of after images. If you recall after images, if you stare at this next screen long enough, 30 seconds or at least or so, and you move to the next one, a blank screen, you'll see the opposing colors that we have here. So, Gustav Fechner was interested in the relationship between the body and the mind. It led him directly to the study of psychophysics. He speculated that the mental sensations to change arithmetically, the physical stimulus must change geometrically. Research and further mathematical workings with Weber's law resulted in Fechner's formula describing the relationship between the mental and the physical. Now, this was all about connecting the body and the mind. Fechner's view is one of double aspectism. He wanted to be able to demonstrate a connection between the body and mind, so scientific people could accept the existence of mind. He saw Weber's law that connects sensation and perception as doing this very things. So, other research included studies on the absolute threshold, which is the lowest intensity at which a stimulus can be detected, and the difference threshold, which is the amount of stimulus magnitude that needs to be changed before a person can detect a difference between those stimuli. He developed various methods of research, including the method of limits, the method of constant stimuli, and the method of adjustment. Next, we have the doctrine of specific nerve energies, Johannes Mueller. He demonstrated that each of the 5 types of sensory nerves results in a characteristic sensation. In other words, each nerve responds in its own way regardless of the stimulation which activated it. Each sensory system is maximally sensitive to a specific type of stimulation but may be stimulated by other forms of energy. He also proposed vitalism. He was a vitalist. The thought that there was a vital energy that somehow was then distributed in specific ways by the nervous system, and that the nervous system transmission was instantaneous. So this idea of vitalism sort of was like a force of nature in a sense, some mystical force in a sense that flowed through the nervous system, similar in some regards to the Aristotle's idea of essences. Hermann von Helmholtz disagreed with this idea of vitalism, which states that life comes from a force beyond physical and chemical processes alone. Because, he would say, it was not physical. The life force was not conducive to scientific analysis. So, the materialist position of Helmholtz and others stated that life could be explained in terms of physical and chemical processes, and thus there is no need to exclude the study of life or anything else from the realm of science. Through research, he was able to demonstrate the application of the principle of conservation of energy to living organisms. So the basic idea is that we have it within ourselves, the energy and the processes that allows life to exist. There is no vital force or vitalism needed. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's in our body already, and we change it, and that's why we have our life, the living force. So he also measured the speed of nerve conduction, finding that nerve conduction in humans was nowhere close to instantaneous. It was between 165 to 330 feet per second. This provided further evidence that physical and chemical processes are involved in our interactions with the environment rather than some mysterious process of vital energy or vitalism. Hermann von Helmholtz, you may recall from other uh, points in your classes as well. Sensations are raw elements of experience, and perceptions are sensations after giving meaning by the person's past experience. So we sense the environment, and part of us perceiving what it means is going to be based on our past experience as well as we piece it together. To explain the transformation from the sensation to perception, he relied on the ideas of unconscious inference of past experiences. He devised a theory, for example, of color vision, which proposed three types of color receptors corresponding to the three primary additive colors red, blue, and green. The firing of these receptors in various combinations results in subjective color experiences corresponding to the various wavelengths of light. He also proposed a resonance place theory of auditory perception, in which the pitches of sound we hear are determined to a great extent on where along the basilar membrane the most vibration is occurring in response to sound vibration. So, from Hermann von Helmholtz's view, the mind's task was to create a reasonably accurate conception of reality from the various signs that it receives from the body's sensory systems. The mind is active. So, looking at Helmholtz's contributions as we wrap this up, the measures of the speed of the nervous impulse, the trichromatic theory of vision, and research on audition, resonance, harmony, and discord.